Hey guys, it's Spooky Boots here, and today I have something a little bit different in mind. It's not necessarily skating content, but it is me editing a thumbnail for a skating video I did for the channel. If you guys are interested in editing thumbnails or basically my work process or anything like that, I think you'll enjoy this video, so go ahead and stick around. I see a lot of creators out there, a lot of small creators like myself, creators who in the skate community specifically, and I think they have some interesting content, but their thumbnails don't make me want to click on their videos. Oh my god. Skit, stop. Their thumbnails don't make me want to click on their videos. So, you know, I'll be like on their page and I'll be looking at their titles and I'm like, oh, their titles are kind of interesting. I wonder what they did do that day, if it's like vlog style or something. And it's, you know, without an interesting thumbnail, I'm just scrolling by the videos, and it's not like anything against them or anything against the video. It's just you get in like this zone of like, you know, clicking on interesting thumbnails and watching the video, and if the thumbnail's not even there, you're not even gonna watch the video. So I'm gonna show you guys some stuff that I do, how I make my thumbnails, some advice I think you guys might enjoy. But yeah, that's basically it. So if you guys are interested in that, go ahead and stick around and let's get started on the video. All right, so the first thing you're gonna wanna do is open your image in Photoshop or whatever photo editing software you have. So this is my image. It is a PNG file. It's actually a screenshot from the final product, so the MP4 video. So basically my workflow is I edit my video and then I export it to MP4 and then I skim through it, kind of quality checking the video. I find stills that I like. If I find a promising one, kind of like a hero shot or like a key shot, I end up just screenshotting it. A screenshot is really all you need when it comes to thumbnails. You don't need a super high res image. It's going to be shrunken down so far anyways. So I find a screenshot just works just fine. I have my screenshot here, and basically what I'm going to do is take my layer and copy it. That way I have a base layer, and I'll go ahead and call this one background. And this next layer is let's just name it layer 1. All right, so we have our first layer. What I like to do with this first layer is just go ahead and open it in Camera Raw, or if you're not using Photoshop, you know, if you have a plugin or something or a different type of program. I'm not too familiar with anything other than Photoshop. So I take it into Raw. If you guys don't have Photoshop, you guys can just do all your image adjustments in whatever program you're using and it'll work just fine. I don't really mess around with too much of this. I tend to find that the auto settings work just fine. So I see what the auto gives me and I am not liking this. So I'm gonna leave that back onto as shot. And I'm just gonna hit auto up here and see what it does. And I think this is a little too much, but I think it's okay. So I think I'm just gonna accept this and mess with the opacity of this first layer in order to get it to where I like. I think Camera Raw did a good job with the auto, you know, the shadows and the highlights and the exposure and everything, but I think it's just a bit too much for me. Take this down to like, I don't know, probably like 60% and toggle between the original and the new layer that I just created to see, I don't know what I'm getting, and I don't mind that, so I think I'm going to leave that. Since I did lower the opacity here, I can't duplicate this layer or else it'll mess with my opacity. Delete that, just so you guys can see the difference there. And I'm just going to flatten this. I'm going to merge the visible layers, and again, I'll call this background. So now that I have my adjustments made, now I'm going to go in and basically just do a little bit of spot touch up, some spot removal. I'm kind of OCD about certain little spots and they just, I don't know, if they're in my image, they drive me crazy. So I think what I'm going to do is go ahead and my spot healing brush and basically just touch up whatever is driving me crazy in this image. Now this isn't a super necessary step, but it's something that I like to do, and I think it you know, goes a little bit of the extra mile, I guess. So I got my spot healing tool and I'm seeing some spots that I want to hit. What I need to do is duplicate my layer, my background layer, and give it a new name. Give it like, I don't know, I'll call it spot. Okay, so I have my spot layer and now I'm going to touch these up and basically compare what I was getting to what I'm going to have here in a little bit. I kind of like how my skates are scuffed up, but sometimes there's weird spots that drive me crazy, like whatever this spot is thing on the heel. The scuffs are fine, those aren't bothering me. Looks like there's something on my wheel here. I'll hit that. That looks good. Asphalt looks fine for the most part. There's some bigger pebbles that I might just hit out of boredom. It's not really like super necessary. There's this thing on the fence, which I think I'm gonna hit. There we go. This is my GoPro, so I'm not seeing any sensor spots. Sometimes I have dirty spots on my main camera. The GoPro, since you can't take the lenses off, you don't get dust in the sensor. I'll look at my pants here and, these dirty spots. Come on, what am I doing with my life? Need to have cleaner pants. So for comparison, let's see basically what we did with this first layer. So I'm gonna toggle between the spot layer being off and on, and we'll see what we got. Yeah, so it's definitely some noticeable changes. It's very mild, but it's not going to drive me crazy while I'm working on the image. So you don't have to merge these layers. I think what I'm going to do is keep them up until I don't need them anymore. So I think what I'm going to do is duplicate my spot layer. And now I think I'm going to start with edits. So edits, you can title these layers whatever you want. This is just my workflow and my process, but I got the little spots with the spot healing brush, and I think now I'm gonna go on to my edits, and edits are anything considerably bigger. So for example, I left my backpack laying here, and that's gonna drive me crazy. I don't want that in the thumbnail. I have the shadow from the GoPro here that is a bit much. I have my mask hanging off of my keychain here, off of my belt loop, and you can see that drooping down right there, and that looks weird. And then Nadia, she was skating with me that day, and if she was 2 feet back, she wouldn't have been in the photo, but unfortunately she started to pop out there behind my legs, so we can clean those 4 major things up. I'm on my edits layer, and I think I'll just start with the shadow down here. And actually, before I do my edits, I'm going to crop my image. And I think I'm going to crop my image because I know the composition I want, and I know that my crop is going to take care of a lot of these spots. So, or at least half of them, the backpack and the shadow here. I want my skates to fall on the rule of thirds, and it looks like they're the cuff bolts there. If you guys don't know what the rule of thirds are, it's basically, or is, it's basically just a composition thing. So if you divide the image up into 3 parts, so you have like a middle section and then, the sections off to the sides, it basically divides the image into 3 parts, 3 equal parts, both horizontally and vertically. I kind of want my skate to be closer to the right side of the image here. Bring my composition, or bring my crop in on the right side, and get my boot closer to the right side of the image. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now. I'm going to come from the bottom because there's a lot of asphalt on the bottom, and I don't need that, but I do want my sky in the photo. Take it right to about there, and I think that's going to be good. So now I have to do a lot less work in terms of editing this backpack out and editing my GoPro shadow out. Let's go ahead and start with the GoPro shadow on the edits layer and clean this up. I'm going to use a different tool this time. I'm going to use my clone stamp tool. The shortcut is just S. I think it'll do a much better job than the spot healing. Spot healing's for tiny little like dust and stuff like that, and if you need to really remove something, you need your clone stamp tool. So I'm going to check my hardness and my brush size. I think that's a good size. Hardness is 0, which is fine. I could go a little harder if I didn't want to like make this wheel look fuzzy, but I actually don't think I'm going to come anywhere near it. Cool, and that looks good. Just like that, that shadow is gone. Really easy. It's nothing too serious. Now I'm going to move on to the backpack over here. Again, same technique. I'm going to grab around the object and kind of start like, from the middle of the object out. I'm just going to kind of follow some like natural lines I'm seeing here in the image in order to make it look like a more, I guess, clean edit. Okay, and then I see some weirdness that's left over, so I'm just going to hit these spots with the spot heal. And awesome, so that looks fine. It's not going to bother me. It's, the great thing about thumbnails is they're going to be so small anyway, so unless you're like sitting there constantly studying someone's thumbnail, you're not going to get a good look at it. They're great because they're small. They usually show up for a second, and then the video plays in like a preview mode on YouTube, so you're only looking at the thumbnail for a second. If there's mistakes in there, no one's gonna notice, and even if they do notice, it's not anything too crazy. So now I'm gonna come up here to the mask that I had hanging down. So there's obviously a difference in the color between the blues. There's quite a bit of a gradient here. Up around here, it's very dark blue, and then down here it gets to very light blue. And I think if I start messing around in here by sampling from down here, it's gonna look really weird. Grab my clone stamp and just come over to, basically horizontally over to where my leg isn't, and kind of on the same level, make my adjustments. Awesome. And I don't want to go too much higher than that because I think I'm going to start fuzzing out my leg here. I could make my tool a little harder. That'll get rid of like me clipping my leg here and making it look fuzzy and blurry, but that could also make the color show up harder and different, so we don't want to do that. So I think what I'm going to do is grab my my polygonal lasso tool, and I'm going to do some freehand stuff in here for a second, kind of like find the imaginary line where I think my pants are. I don't have to worry about clipping my leg, so I can go back to my clone stamp tool, sample a color spot, and touch it up. So select, deselect. So it did leave a little bit of weirdness from where the selection was to where the surrounding area was in terms of the color. Just take my spot heel and kind of follow that line. I'm going to turn my size down here and maybe turn my hardness up just a touch and follow that line. Okay, and that seems to have gotten rid of the weird little line I was seeing. I am going to go back in, turn my hardness up a bit, sample, and get a little closer to my leg there. It looked like some weird things were going on there, but it looks like that took care of it. Okay, cool. So that took care of the shadow. It took care of the backpack and the mask, and now we're gonna do Nadia's face, which is hiding behind my leg here. I'm gonna grab my polygonal lasso tool, and basically I think I do a better job at finding the pixel edges versus the auto, like when you do something like the magic wand tool. I'm gonna go ahead and just do this manually. I'm gonna start here where the sock is. And I'm going to clip into my pants quite a bit because I don't want any weird colors coming from her bleeding into my leg. So dip down a little bit more. There. Now I have a selection of what I want to fix, and same thing, clone stamp. It's honestly going to be your best friend for kind of stuff like this. And I just noticed I didn't even tie up my skate back here. I must have like just put them on and I was like, oh, thumbnail. Sometimes I think about it right away, sometimes I don't, and like I jump on the opportunity to stand in front of the camera for a second to get the thumbnail before I forget. That's funny. Now what I'm going to do is start thinking about the composition again. So I already did crop this image, but now I want to do a little bit something more manipulative in terms of getting my skate closer to this far edge. So duplicate my edits layer. I'm going to move it over just a little bit. I don't want to clip the road here because I really like the road. So I think what I'm going to do is just move it over enough to basically have it come right to the edge of the image. And that'll get my skate closer to this right side of the image. It'll just be better compositionally when I add text in later. The image is so simple that, like if you had something a little more busy and crazy going on, you wouldn't be able to notice what's going on here on the edge, but it looks it looks like it's taking care of itself for the most part because these lines are just continuing. They do get a little wonky, and I am going to fix that, but it's kind of a simple image. You don't even notice that there's a duplicated strip of pixels on the edge here unless you like really start paying attention. So I'm going to grab my clone stamp tool. There's a duplicated spot there and there because the image is basically just dragged over. I'm going to sample my area and basically just clean up where the line gets a little wonky. I'm going to touch up some of these bigger spots that got duplicated and are a little bit more noticeable. So I'm going to merge my visible layers. Cool. All right, and that looks good to me. Now I've kind of manipulated my composition with, messing around with the layers behind the image, and I ended up getting the skate closer to this edge. So in terms of composition, I think I'm pretty happy. I'm going to retitle this image. I'm going to say comp because that's what gave me the composition I liked. This is kind of a simple thumbnail, so there's not a whole lot that needs to be done to it, but I do want to add a little bit of gradient going on in here. And the way I like to do that is I'll just duplicate my composition, GRAD, let's call it grad for short. I'm going to bring down my rulers here and just come right to the middle of the image on both the horizontal and the vertical lines. And I'm going to take my gradient tool, and I have it's like black to translucent gradient, and make sure you're on your layer. And I'm going to mess around with the type of gradients I want here on the sides of the image, and I might do a little bit of the bottom too. I'm going to come over here. That looks good. I'm going to try that again, see if I come in further. I like that a lot. That looks good over there. It kind of darkens up these mountains back here in the trail. And I think I just want to do a touch over here. Since I am going to have text here, I don't want it to be anything too deep into the image, so I might just do right to that fence pole. Yeah, and I think that looks good. It kind of directs the eye to the boot, you know, makes a little bit more out of the negative space, kind of directs you to the boot, and you get a little bit of color difference here towards the edge. I'm going to do the bottom too. I'm just going to try to see what that does. I'm going to come a little higher. Ooh, that looks good. I'm going to clear my guides here because I don't need them anymore. Awesome. And that I really like. It kind of boxes in the image. We get a dark corner down here. It's nice. Yeah, I'm really happy with that. Now I think it's time for text. So I'm going to start with my text here. And for those of you who are familiar with rollerblading, the words are going to make a lot of sense. For those of you who are just here for thumbnails, I'll explain. So the first, I think, line of text I'm going to do is them 909 because that is the name of the rollerblade boot. I'm going to add another layer here and click on my text. Cool. So layer 1 is my text layer. So let's go ahead and do them and 909. Now we're going to do a new layer and do ground control because that is the name of the 125mm frames that I'm on. Ground control. This font I'm using, it's called Schlop, I think. Let me see. Schlop. Yeah, SHLOP. I'm using the regular, and it's an all caps font, so I can't do like, you know, lowercase with it, but that's fine. I don't need the lowercase. And now I'm going to do the 125mm. And now I'm basically just going to play with the size of this font lines over here. I want to create a, kind of like a square kind of shape using the text. So that way I fill this negative space, the sky, and I get something that's a little more balanced, I guess, in terms of like the weight and where the image is. So I'll have weight here and I'll have like some weight here. And then this will be a bit of negative space, but that's fine. I'm gonna bring this up into my corner here, and I'm just gonna make it as big as possible because I think it's one of the most important things when it comes to this video. It's about the them boot with the 125 frames. So I think it's important. Ground control it's important because it's the frames I'm on, but I don't know, I think, you know, them is just, it's a hot topic right now. I think ground control has always been a hot topic, but I think people want to see the them skates and hear about them, and, you know, that's gonna get a click. So I'm gonna make that the biggest font, and I'll make ground control the second biggest. Actually, you know what, I kind of want it to fill, so it'll probably be the smallest. I'm gonna make 125 really big, because it's a huge wheel size, so I'm going to make it huge font, and that's kind of the most exciting part about the video, is that I'm on 125mm wheels, and I'm on those wheels in an aggressive boot, which is the them boot. So I was messing around with color samples earlier, and I actually think this yellow is from this yellow line back here. So I think that's where I got that color, and I wanted to do that because I think I want the 125 to be this color behind like some black font. Now that I have my font kind of spaced out where I want, I'm going to move it around. I want the 125 to be closer to ground control. I want that to be closer. I'm going to select all of my font here and kind of tuck it up into the corner here. Now I'm basically going to duplicate these fonts that I have because I want black text, but I do want a layer of font behind. I'm just going to grab all these, put them behind. I'm going to turn them all off for now. Just work with my top layers. I'm just going to turn the text all black. See how that looks for now. I've turned all my text black, and now I'm going to start messing around with that other text layer that I have behind my text going on. I basically just want to add some color behind it just to pop it, you know, make it pop out a little bit more. So I'm going to go ahead and grab my text tool. I'm going to turn off the first layer, and I'm going to start with the Them 909. So I'm going to go to my Them 909 layer, turn that off, turn on the one that's behind it, which is the copy. And now I'm just going to sample a color that I think will look good. I'm really liking, you know, Them is black, and I like the liner inside the boot. So I think I'm going to do blue. So blue behind the black makes sense in terms of it being a black shell with a blue liner. I'm going to grab my eyedropper and just sample, kind of come in here and see what looks good. Ooh, I liked that, I think. Cool. So now that I got my color, I'm going to select my text and make it a little darker. Cool. Now I have my text there. I really like that blue on blue look. So I'm going to turn the top layer on and select my bottom layer and basically just shift it over a little bit, kind of like a drop shadow kind of situation, but not really, just enough to, yeah, and I really like that. So I think that looks super cool, and I'm really happy with how that turned out. Now I'm going to move on to ground control. So when I think of ground control, I think of white on black, and I think it's because their logo is just a white sickle on, you know, on a black background, or at least on, when they have it on a product, usually it's a black product, and I think they usually use a white sickle. Sometimes they use a black sickle, but I don't know. When ground control comes to mind, I just think of the black and the white. I'm gonna grab my text layer here, or my text tool, turn off the layer that is on top, and come down to the layer that's on bottom, select it, and I'm just gonna turn it white, and turn on my top layer again, select my bottom layer, move that over, and that looks really cool. So kind of pops. It's kind of iconic, I think, when I think of ground control. So in terms of like me relating to this, I like it. It's unfortunate that I had my frames on backwards. I think that was because I needed to rotate my wheels, so I just flipped the frames instead of rotating the wheels, but they have their logo right here on the inside, but it's whatever. If I wanted to, I could like Photoshop one in, but I'm just not that ambitious today, so that's not gonna happen. So we're gonna do the 125 millimeter, and I already have the color that I want for that. It's that light, kind of like pale yellow. So I'm gonna turn on that background layer and just move it over. It's like kind of like a gold. I got it from the highway lines here in the image, or the trail lines, I guess. It's a lighter color. I'm probably gonna bring it out a little bit more, even though, yeah, it's starting to, like, you can see image between the two fonts, which is fine. It's such a light color, but I really like that. It's like a gold behind a black. So I think that looks really cool. I'm pretty happy with where this is at right now. I don't think I need to do anything too much crazier. Sometimes if the video is really exciting, and I mean, not that this video is not exciting, but if there's a lot going on, like different environments or different products, what I'll do is I'll do a lot of photoshopping, and, you know, I might place another scene up in here, kind of like, you know, make a cut behind my leg here, and like this would be a different location. But I actually like how simplistic this thumbnail is. I think I am going to do one more thing, just pop the wheels basically with the ellipse tool and cut out the shape of the frame, so that way it looks like the circles are behind the frame. I'm not going to go too much in depth with that, but basically what I would do, I'll show you guys the final product, but I'm not going to walk through the whole process. Grab your ellipse tool and hold Alt and Shift if you're on a Mac, so that way you can you can pull from the center. I have a size I already like. I think it's like 6 point, and I would manipulate this to fit the wheel like so. Cool, and that is my ellipse layer, so that is on top of the text, but it doesn't really matter where it is as long as it's not behind, you know, your last image layer there. Now what I'm going to do is make a selection using my polygonal lasso tool. I'm going to cut out the frame, or at least where the frame passes through that. And so what I would do is just take my ellipse and, oops. Yeah, I have to rasterize the layer. So I did that. Now what I'm going to do is just erase what I have selected here. So I'm going to grab my eraser tool and just hit it. Deselect. Awesome. And now I'm basically just going to copy that 3 times or 2 more times, and I will show you guys what the final product looks like. And so here is the final product. So I got the black them 909 with the blue text behind it. I got the ground control text with the white text behind it, the 125. So I emphasized them 909 and 125 because I felt like those are the 2 most important things. And the ground control text is such a hard, so it's just a hard line to work with because it's 2 long words. So I basically just used it as the sandwich between the them 909 and the 125 millimeter. So that is it. I got my little pop highlights on my wheels. I did my composition manipulation there, touched up all my spots, did some levels adjustments. I basically let Camera Raw do that. I'm not the best with like color and stuff like that, so I just let Camera Raw handle that, and I think it did a relatively good job. So there you go, that is my thumbnail. If you guys like the video, go ahead and give it a like. If you want to see more, subscribe. Let me know what you think of this style of content. It's, you know, I don't always want to go to the skate park and skate, especially right now, we're all in quarantine. If you guys like this video, let me know. Let me know if you want to see more stuff like this, because, you know, I feel like as much as you guys like skating videos, you might also like maybe some more behind the scenes stuff or like editing videos or whatever. So like the video if you like, subscribe if you want to see more, let me know what you think in the comments, and I will see you guys in the next one.